Hey everyone, welcome to Plants and Politics. I have a very interesting and special guest today. He is a father, pastor, he's a high school educator, and he is running for Congress. Please welcome Brandon Mosely. How you doing, Brandon?
I'm doing terrific. Thank you all for having me. I definitely appreciate the opportunity to speak to you and your wonderful fan base and your listeners.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I know they're very passionate about politics. But yeah, I know the seat you're running for, just for everybody who's watching this, is, I guess it's California District 42. That's going to be 41. Is that correct? Because of the new redistricting lines?
That is absolutely correct. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So I know it's a big pickup opportunity for the Democrats. Currently, we have Ken Calvert, and he's been here forever and a day. Not a great guy. I've done my research on him. Let's just say he has a colorful past. One that I guess when he was I think he was a city councilman initially in the area. But let's just say there was a prostitute involved at one point.
He was in Congress at that point.
Okay, he was in Congress. Yeah. Okay, yeah. So not a great guy. Can't believe he's still a representative. Just doesn't seem to really fit the bill. But anyway, in looking at your past, what I noticed is we actually have something in common. Both of our families lived in Los Angeles. I was actually born in Los Angeles. And then my family moved to Orange County when I was 5. So I know you guys moved to Riverside County, correct? From LA?
Yes. When I was about 2 years old, my parents left LA County to come to Riverside County. We've been here ever since.
Okay. Yeah. So you're born and bred here too.
Yeah. I love Riverside County. I went to college in LA. I went back to Cal State Dominguez Hills, and I made a conscious decision. I always knew that I was going to come back and raise my family right here in Riverside County. Nice. And I fell in love with a beautiful woman who fell in love with me so much that she left San Diego to move right here in Riverside County. So she now also loves Riverside County. So she used to tell me when growing up, she thought she would end up in Riverside County somehow. And I'm that somehow. So.
Well, that's cool. That's awesome. And so you are running for Congress. You also, in addition to all the other things I mentioned, I saw that you co-founded something called People United Servicing Hope, PUSH for short.
Yes.
Can you tell everybody a little bit about what that nonprofit does, what the purpose of it is?
Yeah, definitely. So we originally, me and a few buddies, we opened up this nonprofit about 2016. We consistently kept seeing, unarmed police brutality and murders of young African American males, and we wanted to do more about it. We also wanted to ensure that we could build a level of communication between police officers and the community. We wanted to make sure we also saw some form of responsible reformation to reform the police manners and ways they dealt with certain communities. And lastly, we wanted to also provide hope, because People's United Servicing Hope. So our hope would look like, giving food, giving backpacks, supporting, mentoring. So that's what we started. And we were able to create a 9-point police reform that looked similar to the George Floyd police reform, which ours dates that maybe 6-7 months prior, which really focused on training, community policing, transparency, things of that nature, to ensure that we all should feel safe and okay with calling the police and feeling like the police is there to protect and serve, and instead of to feel like you're being policed and you're being occupied. Right. So that was our goal, and we were able to see Moreno Valley City to actually adopt the oversight board. Riverside County adopt the sheriff department adopt the community board as well. Not exactly how we wanted to see it, but some of it got done, and we're hoping to see that happen throughout, hopefully the nation. where we can all come together and actually still have the safety that we need in our communities and the opportunities to grow and progress as American citizens.
The project sounds awesome. Are you guys are still active with it and working on it on a regular basis?
We're definitely still active. It's not as regular basis as it was prior because everything I'm doing now, but I would like to say this is the extension of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's all about policy, all about change, all about progress.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what this is right now. And I think I foresee it as hopefully being able to hand it over to some brilliant minds to really continue to keep it moving forward. And I'll take more of a hands-off approach because this will be hopefully my main focus, serving the people of the 41st district and ensuring that everyone has their fair share when it comes to equality, equity, and actually finding themselves accessing that American dream.
Awesome. That's wonderful. You're definitely a busy man.
Yeah. I think that the name of the game is I always think of one thing. I think of my grandfather. I remember I was interning on Capitol Hill when I was like 21, 22. It was the summer I interned for Tammy Baldwin. And I also was working at Nordstrom's on the weekends at the Pentagon Mall. And I worked maybe 40 days straight at one point. My friends was like, how are you doing that? Because I'm working 8 hours plus on the Hill for free, of course, but also still needed money. So I would go work at Nordstrom's 10 hours or more because it was doing the sale or what have you.
Oh my God.
And I would think about my grandfather. My grandfather worked so hard his whole life. He came from the Bahamas Islands. His first job was picking oranges in Florida, second job picking apples in New York. So he was a migrant worker for years. And he would tell us how he would wrap his feet up because he had sandals. He was an island boy.
Yeah.
And he would have to climb 20 feet up or higher to literally pick every orange off. If not, he wasn't going to get paid or he couldn't pass through the next tree. And I would think about all those, that hard labor that he went through to find himself in Compton, California, be one of the first African-Americans on the block buying a home there in the early 50s. And I just simply said, this is a part of life, that work. And I have to consistently work because if I'm not working and advocating for people, the chances are their voice is going to be unheard and forgotten. And that's what's happening each and every day for working class people. And I think this sacrifice is well worth it. I know I'm sacrificing so much time with my kids. I have two sons and my wife, and my wife's been amazing supporting and helping me. But this is it's bigger than than the right now. That's my mindset. It's bigger than right now. And we just have to get over this hump and really consistently fight for people. It's a sacrifice, but I really think it's well worth it.
Yeah, I agree.
People are definitely worth it. That's my mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's dive into some of the issues because that's what it is all about, is helping average Americans who are getting left behind.
Yeah.
Corporate interests, of course, are never go without, they always get what they want. Where do you stand on unionization?
For me, I'm extremely for the PRO Act. I'm a union member myself as being a teacher. My mother was a school bus driver, was part of the CSCA, was part of the school, the union there. My uncle was a pipe fitter, so he was part of that union. And I saw and witnessed how unions allow that pathway to the middle class. I was talking to my wife earlier today and just thought about, like, imagine going in by yourself trying to bargain with your management for a raise just for yourself. How almost impossible that is. Collective bargaining is so important, so vital. And if we look at the history, we look at the 60s, early 60s, when unions were still rocking and rolling. You see the federal government raise minimum wage, I believe, like 6 times in the 60s, 7 times. We haven't raised the minimum wage. We've raised it 6-7 times since I think 1992, right? So that lets us know what's the big difference. The big difference is the drop off of the unions. And I truly believe that once the Republican Party targeted the unions, we saw the drastic fall of not only the middle class, but access and opportunities. And the greatest fear for that is also the access to healthcare, right? and buying a home, being able to pay for your kids to go to school, or simply just having a opportunity for kids to make a decision and say, I don't want to go to college, but I want to work with my hands, or I want to join this union, right? And you're seeing for the right to work states all through the South, destruction of healthcare. You have people who are being not placed as a true employee, but being placed as a contract employee, which the benefits and support out of that is, it's horrendous when you look at the type of support they're going to receive. And this is all being done to line the pockets of the wealthy. And I just don't understand, why would anyone in the working class ever fight against a union? Yeah. And I think the unions became the boogeyman the minute when they decided to support civil rights, the minute they decide to support other working class issues, and the minute they decided to put money behind people like Dr. King, since Dr. King's birthday was this weekend and Monday was Dr. King day. I think it's really important to recognize that many of those marches, like the March on Washington, the March on Washington wasn't just about voting rights. I know people love to say that. The big bulk of that was economic issues. And unions paid a lot of money to send their employees there to march. That's why you had so many people. You read some of those signs would say, I need a job, or unions are important, things of that nature. So unions are vital for the success of America. So the PRO Act is so important to break up a lot of the things that's happening in the South, and hopefully find ourselves creating unions in places like Amazon, right? So if I think, and I can go on for days and days, and I would just end with this, that I think if unions are allowed to flourish, a lot of the issues that we see, such as livable wage or healthcare, a lot of it will be alleviated, because who in America today has really decent income and a good healthcare? Normally people in unions.
Right.
So I think it's pretty clear what we need to do. And if we can focus on that issue, I think a lot that we need to get solved, society-wise, economic-wise, we'll see the growth. We'll see people buying homes. We'll see people paying off debt. We'll see people taking vacations, hopefully, if the federal government will step up and put that into law. So it would be a amazing thing to see happen.
Yeah. And we are seeing movement. I mean, it looks like Starbucks, at least a couple of places, they're making headway. They've just struck down that last Amazon election, saying that they pulled some illegal stunts. Yeah. So yeah, there's hope. There is hope. I'm hopeful. I get down when I see that Dr. King was talking about all of these same things decades ago, and we're still here fighting for the same things for average Americans. But then there is movement. There is slight, it's incremental, but it is moving in the right direction finally.
And if I could add to that Dr. King always says that, he continued to say throughout his life that progress is a struggle. And when you're struggling, that means you're going to have to wrestle with it. That means it's going to take time. It's not an inevitable thing. It doesn't just roll in those wheels. But we also have to realize that when we get this progress, we have to keep their feet to the fire, because that we had many times where we had progress, but we took so many steps back, especially during the Trump years that we saw. So we have to stay vigilant and consistent, and understand that once we get this progress, we got to keep going, keep moving, and it's just like football. You're just not happy just with with one first down. You got to get the touchdown, right? And you got to keep scoring. You got to keep scoring, and that's the mindset we have to continue to have, and that's why this midterm election is so important, to continue to get these pickups and to make sure we keep the House and the Senate, because at the end of the day, if not, the Republicans are going to make it extremely difficult to have anything get done that Biden campaigned on and that we're pushing for. Right. That's necessary. And I know some people are feeling upset or maybe hopeless because they haven't seen the progress move so quickly. Well, if we give up now, we won't see any of the progress.
Right. Now, as far as you mentioned healthcare a couple times, I noticed on your website You mentioned improving the ACA, but you stop short of advocating for a universal health plan or something like Medicare for all. Do you support Medicare for all? If that was a bill that came up at some point, is that something that you would feel comfortable voting for?
I think the most important thing for me is I want to see us fully give into ACA in terms of ensuring a public plan. Because if we do Medicaid for all, which would be, you know, great to see everyone have that access. If we do that, we have to make sure the prices are right. We have to bring the price down. And how do we bring the price down? Even with Biden plan and everyone has planned with Medicaid for all, it has a stopgap, and that stopgap is first having a public option, and ensuring that everyone has opportunity to buy into that public option, and hopefully will be competitive enough to start bringing down the cost of healthcare. And from there, we can definitely start exploring Medicaid for all and seeing that happen. I know California is doing that right now, and I think California is always leading the way. And definitely, if it's success here, we'll see it most likely on the federal level.
Okay. You know, because I mean, it is a majoritarian issue. You know, even if you poll even Republicans, independents, and you don't frame it in the way of, oh, this is a socialist program. Even they, by and large, especially independents, are all for it. You know, they want healthcare. And, you know, if we look at it just from a biblical sense, I mean, and, you know, Jesus didn't walk up and say, hey, do you have an HMO or a PPO? I don't know if I can heal you unless you got your copay ready. So
the copay was faith. The copay was faith.
Yeah. So I think it's a right. I think
definitely access to healthcare is definitely a right. And I think it's so important for us to make sure we take care of those who are being left behind, who cannot afford healthcare. And that's why we have to also ensure that middle ground that we have, that people who are right above the threshold, we have to bring that threshold up to make sure we take care of those in the ACA as well. More funding for it. We also have to make sure our seniors who are on Social Security, that they can actually buy their hearing aid through, that they can actually go to the dentist, that they can take care of their eyewear. All these things have to happen, prescription drugs, all those things. We also want to make sure those in unions still have access to the healthcare that they also fought for as well. So it's a lot we have to do that definitely is necessary, and it is definitely a right. We shouldn't say, you know, because of your poverty level, because of your zip code, because of the way you look, the way you believe, you can't have healthcare. That makes no sense. So I definitely agree with you. It is a right.
Okay. And where do you stand on eliminating student debt, providing an option for free community college for all students who want to go to college?
So when I went to college on an amazing scholarship. This scholarship was called the Hope Scholarship. This Hope Scholarship came with no money. It came with me hoping and praying that I'll find a way to pay for college. Okay. I went to Cal State Dominguez Hills because I couldn't afford to go to school in Texas. And when I got there my first day, I literally signed up for classes the first day of school. We called them magic numbers. And I went everywhere to get these numbers, to get into class. I'm sitting in my math class. And mind you, I didn't do any freshman orientation, anything, because it was last minute. Sitting in my math class 2 weeks later, I get tapped on my shoulder. It was like a movie to me. And the professor was like, hey, Brandon, you're no longer on my roster. You need to go to the finance office. I go to the finance office, and I'm filled with hope, fear. I'm praying, I'm hoping, right? And I get there. She looks me in my eyes, the finance director, and said, Brandon, how are you going to pay for college? And I looked back at it and I said, I hope we can find a way. And my hope that ended up being me working full-time at Nordstrom selling shoes, right? The Great Recession hit, people stopped buying shoes. So I couldn't pay for college anymore. So I had to take out loans. I'm still paying those loans out today. I was sitting in my apartment in Long Beach when I was in college, and I was trying to make a decision if I was going to buy groceries or pay for my books. School was never the issue for me. The biggest issue for me was trying to pay for books and pay for my tuition. Working full time, 40 hours a week, taking 18 units, I had to turn down certain internships, and the one that I did take, I took on the risk and had to work those weekends to pay for things and sublease my apartment out. I remember going to check in the cash places to literally try to float myself for the next 2 weeks. I lived on the doorstep of poverty. I'm saying all this to say that when I became a teacher, my goal was to make sure I got students to college paid for. I became an avid teacher, and that was all about college preparedness and helping them find universities. So to say, am I for it? I'm 100% for it. I'm for the 2-year option as well that California has been pushing, that if we can do that across the nation and send students to junior colleges for the first 2 years taken care of, and give them the opportunity to mature, the opportunity to figure out what they want to do, where it's not going to cost them, and find themselves going to either university those first 2 years where they're going to mortgage their future. I have a lot of friends who can't buy homes, who don't want to get married, can't have kids, right? Don't want to have kids right now because they can't afford it, right?
On the decline throughout the nation.
And for me, even making a decision to work in the corporate world right after college was made based off of, I have to make as much money as I can quickly, until I got to a point where I said, you know what, I want to support and do more for my community, and me just making money is not doing that, right? And all the things I wanted to do in college, I couldn't do because I was working full time. And I don't want to see students in the future in that same predicament. I don't want to see my kids in that position. And we have promised people my age and younger so much. If you go to college, all these things are going to work out this way, that way, and so forth and so on. Take this loan, sign here. You're telling an 18-year-old that doesn't know much, and the frontal lobe's not fully developed yet, to sign a loan, 5 to 6%. When I was in college, was 5 to 6%. That's going to be funded by the federal government. How does that make sense? That seems like we're setting them up for failure. And when it comes to the racial income gap and wealth gap, how much would that change if we took away that debt? African Americans and Latinos have the highest college debt. And they also are the ones who are least likely to own a home. And that goes through for historic reasons and so forth and so on. Coupled that with millennials. Exactly. And coupled with millennials who aren't buying homes because of so much debt. We do that and open up that floodgate. How much more would those people spend with purchasing a home, buying a new car, getting married, taking a trip? How would that change the economy? Heck, even if we brought even if we took the interest away, even if we took the interest away, it would at least save most people half of what they owe right now.
Right.
And how many times we've just saw in the news different loan companies being sued because they put you on forbearance without you understanding that, hey, I'm going to continue to recur interest.
Right.
So there's so much wrong with that. And I would love to see us tackle that. And I think that would do so much good for our economy and so much good for working class people who are sitting at the grocery store every day trying to decide what they can put in their basket and what they cannot, because what they can afford or not. And I understand that feeling. I understand going to the checking and cash, knowing that I have to pay 20, 30% in 2 weeks. And I'm in that cycle for a year or 6 months, whatever it may be. It's a difficult place to be when you go to the gas station, you can't fill your tank up, and you're trying to stop the pump from going over, and that's where we're at. And there's a lot of people in Congress who hasn't been where we're at. Working class people are being forgotten in Congress because we consistently send the well-to-do, wealthy people to Congress who can call all their friends up to bankroll them and send them to Congress, and they give us lip service. And when they get there, they forget about us because they haven't lived like us.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So that's why it's so important.
Yeah. Like I mentioned to you before we started recording, I have a friend who ran for Congress in 2018, and she couldn't even get an endorsement from certain groups, women's groups, unless she had a certain amount of money in her coffers already. I mean, if that doesn't tell you everything you need to know about
Yeah.
politics these days and what they consider to be of importance and priority, it's sickening.
Yeah, and I think what we see is that millionaires are making decisions and billionaires are racing to space.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem with that is when millionaires make decisions for working class people, what we need is normally end up on the back burner.
Right.
And that's why it's so important, even if you're donating $5, $25, $100, whatever it is, so important to find a candidate to donate to and support, because every dollar goes a long way. And that's why you see a few great working class people in Congress, because people are behind them. But a lot of times it's a lot of big money, and the big money either comes from corporations, or if you got to understand it, if I'm a millionaire, I know other millionaires that's going to bankroll me, who's going to give me double max amounts that we call them. That's $5,800, and you get 20, 30 of those. Now you're looking like you're doing something amazing compared to someone who actually had 6,000 people give to their campaign.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I think it's really important for us to realize that we have to truly push the working class candidates, because they're going to advocate for us. They're going to shake things up. They're not going to go into Congress and do everything as business as normal,
Right.
because I understand what we're going through right now. I understand that it's difficult to make ends meet, and we need support, and we're drowning out there. That the chips have been stacked up against us for many of decades.
Mm-hmm.
It's getting worse each and every year.
Yeah.
And we have to do something about that. It makes no sense that there's so many women who had to stop working because of COVID, because they had to take care of their children.
Yeah.
It makes no sense that families are paying $1,000 a month per child for daycare or preschool. It makes no sense. I mean, how much would that change so many people's lives if they could see $12,000 a year back in their pocket?
Yeah.
Or maybe even go to work, because now you can afford to send your kid to daycare because some of it's being subsidized. So important. And we're hurting working class people, we're hurting women. And that's that pay gap that we continue to talk about, because the pay gap really hits women in their childbearing ages.
Yeah.
So you're being punished for bringing a life in.
Right. Well, and then it
That's
affects you on the back end
exactly
during your later years when you're collecting Social Security, because you didn't earn as much in those very vital years.
Exactly. And that's what we're forgetting. And also those years when you would get those pay bumps. You can't get those pay bumps if you're off for nine months or 6 months, or here's the alternative: you rush back and you don't get to have bonding time with your child, right?
Yeah.
Then those same people who are voting against that, they're trying to stop you from having the right to decide what to do with your body.
Right.
So that's the irony. That's insane.
They want total control. That's what it's
total
all
control.
about. That's what
total control.
Yeah. They want to tell you when you can go to work, when you can't go to work, what you can do with your body. Yeah. But then, we're going to let rapists off with a slap on the wrist.
That's the scary thing. And that's the culture that we're living in, and we have to fight against. That is so important, that we're living in a culture where we're putting the ownership on women to protect themselves from creeps out there, right? And we blame, what does she have on, or did she go out by herself? Anything in the world, which simply ends up being much of insanity to me, because at the end of the day, we have to do more to ensure those people who commit those crimes are behind bars, and to make sure women feel safe no matter where they go, what they do, what they decide to wear. And if they decide to do whatever they want to with their body, that's their body, that's their choice. And I think we have to fight for that. We have to be allies to women, because at the end of the day, once they start deciding what women should do with their bodies, who's next?
Mm-hmm.
And I can't tell you how much I don't understand. I always like to think about, I'm a Tupac fan. They said, you know, a man can't tell when or where a woman should have a baby because we didn't create the baby. And I know this seems like maybe off the scale a little bit, but this is all about control at the end of the day, like you said.
Right. Yeah. No, my uncle used to say a woman is stuck with a responsibility the rest of her life. A man can just zip up his fly and leave.
Wow.
And all too often that is true.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a firm believer for myself that, you know, I think being a father was the greatest thing in my life. I'm so fortunate and blessed to have two sons, and extremely fortunate that my wife decided, you know, carried my two sons, and I'm forever grateful. And I personally couldn't see even or fathom doing, you know, anything like that. And I think fatherhood is and being and having a family and having a wife, those are things that really grounds a person, and it's really grounded me. And allowed me to really see the importance. I've always been in service. I started serving people when I was 6 years old. I gave my first message preaching at 6 years old. I mentored, support,
I read
gave. When I say gave, I'm talking about giving my time, my effort, money, giving whatever I could, right? Supporting backpack drives, food drives. The list goes on since I was, you know, 6 years old. And all that was so important because Dr. King says anybody can be great because anybody can serve. All you need is a heart full of grace and a soul full of love. So that means we need to send great people to Congress, not great because they have power, not great because they have money, great because they want to serve people. And I think my idea of service grew even more so when I became a father. Because I'm looking at my kids and I'm saying, I don't want my kids or anyone else's kids to go through some of the things that we're seeing in America today.
Yeah.
And I want to ensure that everyone has really the access to this American dream that we keep talking about, especially or this California dream as well, that we keep talking about, because California is the only state that we have dream tied to it, just like America. And I'm looking at the price of homes going up through the roof. We're seeing the pay staying the same.
Yeah.
It's almost becoming unattainable for people to be able to raise their kids in, you know, a 3-bedroom home with a backyard in a safe neighborhood that shouldn't, and then send them to a great school. Not great because of the zip code, great because it's in America. And you know, that's difficult to see. You know, I can't no longer sit back and just say, you know, someone else is going to fix it.
Yeah. 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 Like they say, you know, people say someone's got to do something. You're someone.
Yeah,
We're all
exactly.
someone. So
Exactly.
let's step up. And speaking of kids, one thing that is, of course, top of mind with everybody is gun safety, gun violence. What laws do you support? What would you support in Congress as far as changing the way things are going right now, where we're seeing literally gun violence constantly, and parents are terrified to send their kids to school?
So as an educator, I spent years going through different trainings for active shooter trainings. I remember Columbine happening. I was in middle school when Columbine happened, and we were the first class that really started to see that training as well. So I spent a good portion of my life going through active shooter training. I saw the SROs come. That's police officers on campus being more of a presence. I've seen the change and the growth of that. I've witnessed, like so many of us, insane shootings across the nation. We all read the news when we see boyfriends who has had a history of violence come back with a gun. I am completely in favor of gun control, and that gun control should look like a background check. It should look like closing the boyfriend loop. It should look like closing the gun show loop as well. It should look like more substantial training to hold a gun as well, to own that gun. I'm in favor of people to own guns because of the Second Amendment right. I understand that, but it's a right that needs to be well regulated.
Mhm.
And we're falling short because across the board in so many different states, there are different rules. So when people say, look at Chicago, so Chicago's so strict and they have so many guns, they're going out of the state to get the guns.
Right.
They're going, you get Wisconsin and these different places, right?
Yeah.
Where they're going to buying the guns and going right back up Missouri, what have you, right? Going to gun shows and buying guns behind, closed doors, right?
Yeah.
And that's a problem. And that's why across all 50 states, we need that control, that gun control, because people are dying, children are dying for no reason. It makes no sense for me to see that after we saw the Parkland shooting, instead of the Republicans calling for some gun control, some basic common sense gun control, they called for more money in policing.
Yeah.
It makes no sense to me. So I think it's so vital, especially being an educator. A lot of people talk and tell you gun control is important. I've seen it firsthand, and I've had many thoughts every time I've the Parkland when my kids walked out. I thought to myself, what would I do if that happened to me? How would I protect my students? What would I have to sacrifice, right? And mind you, I'm there to teach.
Yeah. Educators
Right?
have a tough enough job as it is.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it. I don't have the patience for it. It's not, that's not something you guys should be focused on.
But it's definitely a focus. We have that training once a semester, and it's always top of mind. So much so, and you have teachers who have plans, who think it out. I had a plan. I thought things out. What would I have to do? Fight or flight, hide. And kids have to think about those things as well. And we shouldn't be in that place.
And kids shouldn't be thinking about that either.
Yeah, and it's insane. And you see the NRA continue to pour money into certain politicians, because they're going to consistently turn their back on human lives to ensure that they're going to be able to sit in that seat. And that's someone's like Ken Calvert, who afterwards didn't call for anything when we saw the shooting in San Bernardino. So we have to ask ourselves, what are we doing? This guy was able to buy that gun, I believe, online. It's scary.
Yeah.
It's scary.
There's no reason for it. I'm like you. I support the Second Amendment. We have a lot of guns. We're gun owners. We have 2, human-sized safes full of guns in my house. But there absolutely needs to be better laws and restrictions. I have extended family in Japan, and you have to take a course in Japan. They come and do a home check multiple times, not just before you get the firearm, but they come and check at your home to make sure it's secured after you have the gun, and they can show up whenever and check. No gun violence. It's like, it's so rare in Japan that it's like, oh my God, we had a shooting. Like, they're not used to it there. Here we're like, oh, it's just another Tuesday.
Yeah.
It's sickening.
And I think another thing another caveat is that some people do blame it on mental health, right? Let's say we do blame it on mental health, which is not completely correlating with many of these shootings anyways. Why aren't we spending money in mental health resources then? If that was what the GOP said, well, this person was unhinged. So if this person unhinged, instead of putting more money in law enforcement, how about put some money in, I don't know, mental health resources?
Right.
So they're not even calling for that.
Yeah.
So it just seems,
or healthcare
the same least
in general.
Healthcare in general. I mean, it's and if they're so concerned, and what happened during when we were calling for gun reform the last couple of years ago, you had the president at the time, Trump, and whoever was manning the station for him continue to call, on Chicago, how horrible Chicago is. Well, gun control doesn't work in Chicago, and all the crime and things of that nature.
Mhm.
I continue to remind people, if you live in poverty, you're 2.5 times more likely to commit a crime, no matter your race,
Yeah.
right? And crime is a poverty issue.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
what should we do to solve that issue? Do we continue to throw people behind bars? Do
Make
we
money for
continue to,
the prison system,
exactly, do we continue
for-profit
to,
prison system, which is sickening.
exactly,
Yeah.
do we continue to cipher out resources from those areas, or do we provide support and resources and maybe, I don't know, start building parks, start building job opportunities, right? What do we do? And
Yeah.
if we did those things, that guaranteed will reduce crime. Because why do people commit crime? Normally crime happens because of necessity, Maslow hierarchy,
Yeah.
right? And
Desperation.
exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where we're at.
Yeah. Yeah. Lift people out of poverty,
Yeah.
and so much of it resolves.
Yeah. Education, job opportunities, job training,
Right.
apprenticeship program, which was a part of what President Biden wanted to do as well. That's being stalled right now. Putting money in apprenticeship programs, not only for unions but for other job opportunities, to be able to give students a streamlined access to jobs,
Right.
to well-paying jobs that will lift them into the middle class, and lift them out of the debt, or even the access to find themselves in debt because of going to college, because that's what they were told they had to do.
Right. Right. And it ties back to the abortion argument, because if you force women to have children that they don't want or can't afford, you just perpetuate the problem.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what we're seeing in Texas, that's going to hurt women in poverty and women in color more than anyone,
Right.
because they don't have the money to support the children,
Mhm.
or they don't have the money to go to another state
Right.
to find themselves, having an abortion. So
Right.
what we're seeing is an attack on people in poverty, an attack on women of color. That's what we're seeing.
Yeah.
And we have to call that out, and we have to advocate for these women, because at the end of the day, on top of that, African American women are more likely to die while giving birth or have complications,
Yeah.
and also not to receive the support needed to breastfeed either. Lactation consultants, correct? I believe that's who they were for my wife.
Yeah.
And that's not that's not a lot of times in many hospitals in urban areas. That's not an option. They're not there on staff. So it's a full circle of
It's all
issues.
connected. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. You give people health care so that they're not going into debt over it, so that they're not having to file for medical bankruptcy and, or go without, or go to these county hospitals, like you said, that don't provide the best care. They provide the minimum necessary. Yeah. Nope. Yeah, I hear you on all of it. So I also noticed on your website something that's very key, crucial here in the Riverside County area is immigration laws and reform, and especially support for the Dreamers. You absolutely support giving them a path to citizenship.
Exactly.
Reforming the laws.
For me, it's very near and dear to my heart, because my grandfather was immigrant, and he would always talk about the Bahamas Islands and how beautiful the water was, and Queen,
gorgeous,
and the Queen of England, because when he left, they're still under the monarch. And he always also talked about why he wanted to get to America at the age of 18. And when he left, it was the mid 1940s, late 1940s, actually. And after World War II, and he came because he wanted to build that American dream. He wanted more for himself. He wanted to find a family, find a wife, and build a family. That's where we met my grandmother in Florida. She came from Georgia. She's a daughter. She's 92 years old. 92, yeah. She's a daughter of a man who worked his whole life on a plantation,
Mhm.
who would consistently have his kids, pick cotton and tend the fields and do all the work that was necessary. But he also found himself consistently being cheated by the landowner. So my grandmother moved to Georgia, met my grandfather, fell in love, and
Mhm.
found their way to New York, then to California. I'm saying all that because I know the importance of going after that dream when you don't have anything in your pocket. I also know the importance of that because being a teacher, I also taught night school and I taught adult education. And I had so many students who came over from, across the world,
Mhm.
South America, most of them did. And some of them had harrowing stories where they, walked thousands of miles in the desert or rode on the top of a train to
Mhm.
get to America. And they came here for that opportunity, that hope.
Right.
And that's why I became that night school teacher to help them get their first step to, realizing their American dream. Then also
Mhm.
when Trump became president, I had students in my classroom crying because they were dreamers and they didn't know what that meant for them.
Yeah.
So for me, I have a personal tie to that issue, and I just don't understand how we can consistently have these young people who call America home, and that's all they know,
Right. Yeah. Through
and
no
and
fault of
tell
their
them
own, they're here.
they're here, and tell them to go back to a place they know nothing about,
Right.
right, and not grant them full citizenship where they could vote, right.
Yeah.
This is so important because they are working Americans.
Yeah.
They are here paying taxes. They deserve that
Mhm.
right. And for those who are fleeing, um, you know, dangerous war zones or fleeing gang violence, fleeing
Right.
poverty,
Yeah.
they're not traveling from the Northern Triangle for no reason. They're not traveling on top of trains. I don't think
Yeah.
people understand. I have a podcast as well, and I had a podcast with an immigration lawyer. We had a
Mhm.
great conversation about that, and that's what these people are going through.
Yeah.
Um, and we're forcing them to sit at the border,
Yeah.
right? We have to get our process down. We have to make a pathway first for the dreamers. Secondly, for those who are who's here for long stays with their visas, we have to figure
Mhm.
out that pathway for those people because at the end of the day, that's what makes America, great. We
Yeah.
heard that so many times the last 5 years, but that's the
Mhm.
reality. America's diverse. When you
Yeah.
think of America, you just don't think of one color, one culture. It's a
Right.
diverse group, and we have to understand these people are bringing in not only their culture but their hard work. They're
Mhm.
they're here not to do any damage or hurt to us or ill will.
Right.
They're here because they're fleeing something, and we have to ensure that they have access to that American dream as well. And I think it's so important that we do so because our economy is also built on those people.
Mhm.
Um, in reality, they deserve their rights, deserve worker rights and a livable wage as well, because they're doing a lot of jobs that people aren't.
Yeah.
And their second and third generation kids are becoming those doctors, those lawyers,
Mhm.
um, leaders, the politicians. That's their offspring.
Yeah.
My grandfather came here with nothing, and I'm running for Congress.
Right.
So yes, we have to fight for immigrants, and we have to see that as a reality. Hopefully soon.
Yeah.
That should be one of our priorities.
I think if we can keep moving forward, like we talked about in the beginning with unionization, get people the right wages, increase their wages,
Yeah,
help them with health care, lift people out of poverty. I think it would take so much of the steam out of the right wing machine of otherizing people from other countries. And, it would just take away so much of their argument, because people are in this mindset of, I got to hold on to everything I have. I can't share it. I don't want somebody else to maybe get it because I'm so desperate. So,
and that's been the game plan forever.
Oh yeah.
When we see, the Irish and Italians and African Americans who fought over breadcrumbs in the North, right?
Yeah.
When we're fighting for breadcrumbs in West Virginia, right? In South Carolina, these same people who vote Republican and who showed up at MAGA rallies are poor people who are angry.
Yeah.
And why are they angry? They're angry because they don't see their access to the American dream.
Right.
That every American that we see feel like it's their birthright. And why is that? And what they're being told through, Fox News and through right-wing media is that it's people who are coming here from other countries. Right. It's the dangerous BLM, or it's because of what they're trying to teach your children, or it's because of Big Bird. It's always someone else, but the ownership really falls on those that they continue to elect.
Right.
Those people aren't fighting for them.
Yeah.
They're just not. Yeah. Their elected officials are wealthy, middle to older white men who simply care about one thing: their bottom line.
Yeah. I see Democrats making the same mistake. I see so many people who vote for candidates based on their personality. Yeah. And they don't look at their policies. They don't look at their background. They don't look at the PAC money that they're getting. They don't look at who their donors are. So, I see people making that same mistake on both sides. And then everybody goes, oh, nothing ever changes.
Yeah. If
you keep voting for the same type of people.
if we want change,
nothing's going to change.
If we want policy change, we have to change those who create policy.
Yeah.
And that's, you hit the nail on the head. It's true. We're seeing it in the Senate right now. We have two people holding it up right now. Right.
Yeah.
And if it was those two, it might be another two. We don't know. Yeah. Right. Those are two right now.
There's others who just aren't being as vocal, but they have the same positions. Yeah.
And that's why, to me, and it's just a reality, if someone wasn't willing to serve your community prior to trying to get elected, you should probably look closely to that. And that's why I pride myself on having my nonprofit. That's why I pride myself on being a pastor, being an educator, being able to mentor so many youth in the last, 15, 17 years since I was a young man. Because it to me, it shows evidence that at the end of the day, no matter what happens here, I'm going to consistently serve my community, and I want to see it in a better place. I love Riverside County. That's why I had choices to stay in LA or move somewhere else. That's why I moved back. That's why I purchased my home here. That's why I'm raising my kids here, because I love this place. And I want to see the best for it and best for the people that's here, that they deserve better jobs here. They deserve better air quality. They deserve better roads. They deserve access to amazing healthcare, access to amazing schools. They deserve all that simply because being an American citizen, right? And if you're willing to work hard, you deserve to be able to purchase a home. You deserve being able to take a trip and blow off steam once a year, at least with your family. You deserve those things. You deserve to take mental days off. You deserve to have sick days, right? You deserve those things. We work so hard. You deserve to make sure you have a livable wage. And the thing is, we have to be willing to fight for it. And if we want to send someone that's willing to truly fight for it, they have to have that track record that shows that they're going to serve people, and they have served people, and they're going to continue to do so. Because the greatest fear is what you said, is that we send someone to Washington and they just fall right into the same plan and continue to see things being stalled, not fighting for people, not making enough noise, ensuring that change will come.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that your listeners will hear this and be energized enough to not only support my campaign, but to learn more about me and more about some of the plans that I have. And for me, the biggest thing is I tell my students this all the time when they start the year, and they figure it out within the first couple of weeks. I'm true to this. I love people. And I think you can't be a effective teacher or effective pastor, mentor, if you don't love people. I wouldn't have given up the job I had before if I didn't really want to see change. I really love people. And I want to see the best for people. I want to see everyone have the opportunity to sit at the table, if that makes sense. And I love making pizza. I'm a big pizza guy. So I want everyone to be able to get a slice of the pie at the end of the day. And that's what I want to see. I don't want to see with just one pepperoni. I want to see with a whole slice. So that's what I'm fighting for people.
As long as it's vegan.
Oh yeah, for you vegan. Yes, I'm sorry, my plant people. I can make an actual good vegan pizza as well. I have done that. I have done that. I have vegan friends.
It's come far. It's come pretty far. Yeah, there actually is vegan pepperoni now.
Yeah, and the cheese as well.
Yeah,
my wife she went vegan for a while, then she went non-dairy as well. And we had to do the cheese, and she still doesn't eat pork right now at all, and a little bit of beef. So I have to always she's turkey pepperoni now though, but before she was so I get it. I get it. If it's vegan, I'll make sure I make a vegan pie for all of you.
If we want to save the planet, that's the way to do it.
I hear you.
Yeah. I mean, more so than every form of transportation combined, if everybody went plant-based, we could turn climate change around. Yeah.
Now she's giving me that look. The ownership's on you now, guy. Oh man.
I'll have to get you one of my books.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I promise
I talk about all aspects of it, including climate change, and the unfortunately the revolving door in Washington that keeps us stuck. One last thing I want to ask you, Brandon, is about your support of the LGBTQ community. I noticed on your website you are a supporter, and I did want to ask you about that because you are a pastor. So a lot of people are going to make an assumption that you are against abortion, against LGBTQ rights. We already covered, woman's right to choose, which you are for. Can you tell people where you land on the LGBTQ issue?
Yeah, and I would love to. I think the biggest thing is, for me, I've been taught what my belief is about love, equality, and equity. And I'm a firm believer that people deserve to be happy and feel love and live their life and have equity. They shouldn't have to live in fear. They shouldn't have to hide who they are. They shouldn't have to prevent themselves from being happy or feel less than. And for me, I want to make sure I protect their right. And that's my job. My job as a minister, my job as a teacher, nonprofit director, and hopefully a Congress member is to protect their rights and ensure that they can live under that 14th Amendment and have that equal access, equal protection. I think it's so important. And I think I learned so much the importance of that when I was interning for someone like Tammy Baldwin, who was the first openly gay woman to run, and now she's a senator. I learned so much in her office, and that was the summer of 2009 when people were calling in, fighting for the right for marriage, right, equality in marriage. And it opened up my eyes to see such the importance of continue to fighting for that. And it's to me, it's my job. It's what I'm here to do. And I think at the end of the day, love conquers all, and it's a reality, and that's what I'm going to live through and live in.
Awesome. Thank you very much for sharing that. Because yeah, that is something that's going to come up, and that was important for me to see, because to me, humans are humans. So
Without a doubt. And um, I think that's the reason why I have attracted in terms of the endorsement. I have nearly 25 elected officials endorsing me, and very diverse people from race, from even who they love. And I think it's so important to be able to build that coalition, because I want to leave you guys with this last proverb, that if I want to go fast, I'll go along. But if I want to go far, we'll go together. And that's going to take a diverse group of people supporting this campaign. And that's why it's so important for us to understand that there's enough room underneath the tent for everyone.
well, I really appreciate your time. I know you must be slammed. I mean, you were probably slammed before you started running for Congress, but this is probably just turned it up to 11, as they say.
Yeah, it's definitely a great experience, but it's one that comes with sacrificing work. It's not easy. It's not easy. I know on TV, you see people kissing babies, shaking hands, but it's a lot of work to go behind it, especially when you're a working class candidate, where you have to juggle so many different things, and definitely take care of the family as well. But also want to make sure I become an advocate, and I am an advocate now, but be an advocate in Washington for other families as well. So I do anything for my family, and I'm looking at District 41 as my family. So I'm gonna try to do everything I can for 41.
Awesome. Well, I wish you well. I wish you good luck.
You.
Can you tell everybody where to find you, website, social media, your podcast that you do?
Yes, definitely. So you can find me on brandonmosely.com, Mosely, brandonmosely.com. You can also donate there, and also take a look at my bio and my stance and my launch video, and everyth's there. For all handles, Mosely for Congress, the number 4 in between Brandon or Mosely in Congress. So Mosely for Congress. Also, my podcast is entitled Be Real. It's the letter B, period, real. I haven't done an episode in some time because of this, but I have roughly like 35 episodes or so, spanning with history, social issues, policy, politics. So if you want to kind of hear my heart in depth, where I stand for a lot of the issues, you'll see things about the women pay gap, civil rights, immigration, policing. All those things will be, you can hear quite a bit in education right there in that podcast as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Brandon. I really appreciate it. And I'll be following your candidacy. And if there's anything I can do for you, let me know. Reach out. You got my email now. And I appreciate your time and all that you do.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Take care, and the best to your family.
Thank you.